But these are two biggies, and if I can't get these resolved, for me it's over, kind of thing. And that I printed out some stuff. So we talked a little bit, and it was the UN. That's the article that came out. And I do have, it came out in October of 2001. And it announced that for the last 10 years, they've been part of the UN. For me, that's humongous. And as you can probably imagine why, because I grew up always believing that the United Nations was the wild beast.
Sure.
And so it was just shattering to me. And then, of course, through further investigation, I heard about the library card, and I heard some other things. So I got the letters from the UN that argued those away. And reading this article led me to my next big issue, is the child abuse policy.
Okay.
That one's a big one for me. And I know it's a no-no, but I did get my hands on the Elder's Manual. And I didn't keep it. I just wanted to see the policy. But I did print off the pages regarding the child abuse policy. And I wasn't really interested in the rest, to be honest with you. But these are my big ones. Because, in my opinion, this is fornication as far as I'm concerned. They've become part of the harlot. And to me, this is fornication. And then the child abuse, the way I see it is, and this is why I'm having such a struggle with this, is if I found out my husband had been having an affair for 10 years and molesting my children, I couldn't be with him. And I expect more from my religion. And that's where I'm having my big issue.
That's fair enough.
I can't get my head around this.
And I'm sure
My other issues, because I have a lot, they're all kind of, I think they can be rectified. But these are my two big ones.
Okay. And I'm sure that, before you would draw that conclusion about your husband, you'd have to have substantive proof, and you'd have to also talk to him about, you wouldn't just listen to someone who's accusing you of such a thing, right?
Yeah, but this is documentation that we have. This is not, I said and they said, this is proof as far as I'm concerned. They have letters from the United Nations themselves.
And that kind of just makes the point that I'm highlighting. You've got a perspective. Wouldn't you agree? Even in a court of law, you don't listen to only one perspective, right?
That's true, but evidence does weigh heavily in a decision.
Totally agree.
And to me, this is pretty heavy evidence.
Okay. But you would, in a court of law, right, hear all sides of the story before you would make such a conclusion.
Correct.
Yeah. So that's the only point I'm making.
Yeah.
So I know that I can obtain, I have a copy of the branch's letter in response to any of that information. So even rather than me just telling you, which I've had other folks say, how come?
I'm sure this is a big issue.
Not for most people. Because they appreciate that, one side of the story and that kind of thing. So for most people, it usually comes down to how come the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society could use a picture that's attributed to the United Nations in the Watchtower magazine, that so closely. And the simple answer is that rather than try to reenact a global disaster, that making use of a picture from a file database and having to...
But see, that may seem innocent, but...
I'm not saying that it's innocent. I'm not passing judgment. I'm simply stating that that is the conclusion.
But why are they using that in the literature? That is a good question.
Because the file database of the picture is that picture is available, and simply stated, it's a requirement by law in order to utilize that photograph. Now, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, in comparison, could hire correspondents all over the world to take photos and send them into harm's way. But, that would be silly. And so what you have to do is in the context, are they condoning the organization? Are they suggesting that this organization is worthy of our praise or appreciation, or are they simply using a photograph as evidence that?
Okay, well, I can understand that.
Yeah.
But in this one, they had to actually physically register to become part of this. They
And I
had
can get
to
you-
agree to
And I can get you
the bylaws.
And I can get you a copy of the branch's letter in response.
Okay, I would like to see that.
Yeah.
Because, to me, this is like the photographs that the private investigator took.
And if you think that this is evidence in some way that Jehovah's Witnesses believe that the United Nations is a solution, or do you believe that that's something that we believe?
Oh, I don't believe that I can't think for them to think if that's why they joined or not. However, the YMCA is a good example. I mean, if somebody wanted to join the YMCA for the access to the pool, for instance, that would be frowned upon. That would be,
Yeah, but in that particular instance, somebody would not be disfellowshipped or the like, because you can appreciate that would require somebody to use their.
yeah, but the society is not just one of the members. The society is in
Right.
charge. They are the head honchos. They're the ones that are creating these.
If I can finish my statement
I'm
before
sorry.
you start interjecting, maybe it would make sense, but yeah, I mean, even in that situation, we live in a very complex world, and I'm making no excuses for anyone. But rather than quickly, for instance, for me to say, rather than quickly, somebody who joins the YMCA, as an example, because you illustrated that, rather than me quickly to immediately impute bad motives and to say, bad person, I would reason with them. And it's very possible that they could say, you know, we were thinking this, but now in retrospect, I see the folly of that. And so I'm going to withdraw my membership. Now, are they a bad person for the first choice, or are they a good person for the conclusion?
Well, I can see that point, but again, that's the average member. That's not the people in charge. I mean, I've heard my whole life that these were
Not infallible. In no way, shape, or form is the organization infallible. If we wish infallibility, we're going to be disappointed.
Now, my problem here, and again, it was one of those looking at it afterwards, I wish I would have said something. But he uses the example of a witness joining the YMCA and, making a mistake. Now, the difference between his example and the governing body joining the UN is that this is not a case of two people in the back seat of a car making out and things go a little too far and this is a mistake or this is a bad judgment of the YMCA. This is the group, the governing body as a group, getting together, having meetings, discussing whether or not they're going to join, voting on it, it winning by a 2/3 majority vote. This was a well thought out decision. This is not a mistake. And that I wish I would have said it because as soon as he left, that's when I was thinking about it. But that's how I see it. Anyway, continuing.
And that's
But
true in the
as
first
God's
century.
channel, shouldn't we expect more than that?
I take you back to the examples in the first century of the Christian congregation. You may be familiar in the 10th chapter of Acts, where the Apostle Peter, there he says, oh, unclean, I won't eat unclean things, right? Do you remember that?
Correct.
Yeah. Now, Jehovah used Holy Spirit to make it real clear to Peter in that particular instance that he should speak with Cornelius and his family and friends from Caesarea. Since then, he does not do that. In the 16th chapter of Acts, you'll notice that the Christian congregation had to assess what appears to be a really basic matter to you and me, circumcision. And they also had to address resurrection, because many persons imagine coming up in a Jewish system of things where circumcision was an absolute necessity. Many persons, they were disturbed greatly over the Christian congregation saying, circumcision is not a requirement. And even
They
though
were disturbed about a lot of things changing.
yeah. And so the challenge that we're faced with is today, things change too. For instance, I can show you the Watchtower magazine with crosses on it.
Oh, I remember those.
I can
My
show you
grandmother
pictures.
had all those,
I can
yeah.
show you pictures of the Christmas tree at Bethel. So we can either expect perfection in a human organization, or we can acknowledge the light getting brighter. And I know what most folks will say. The light getting brighter thing is an issue that they take too. So here's my comment with that. What's the alternative? What's the better alternative? Because I have no problem with raising doubts. Jesus said, Matthew 6:6, keep asking.
Correct.
But if Jehovah's Witnesses are not the organization being used to accomplish God's will on earth today, I need to know who is.
My biggest beef with this particular argument, and I wish I would have addressed this, is where else would we go, right? Meet at the proper time. If I were going into my refrigerator and all I had in the house was the steak that I was ready to have, and I pulled out the steak and it looked like this, where else am I going to go? If this is all I have, is this what I'm going to eat? Or am I going to look for something that isn't tainted? And that's my beef. The organization has proved to be tainted, yet they've tried to put us in a foxhole that there's no alternative. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to look for an alternative. I may not have an answer now, but just because I don't have an answer yet doesn't mean I'm going to eat my rotten meat. That's all.
I can't just say they're not.
Yeah, but there's a lot of organizations that claim that they are.
I didn't say that they could claim that they're not, and I don't care. The evidence has to be there. Who is accomplishing the worldwide preaching work, for instance?
Well, there are quite a few that do go out and do missionary work. The witnesses aren't the only ones that do that.
I didn't say that they're the only ones. So you're going to tell me which religion is accomplishing?
I'm not getting into the
See what I mean? That's what
the and or.
Yeah, and neither am I. I'm not saying.
You have the choice between this or
Correct.
pick something. That's kind of forcing me into a corner where,
No, it's just making a decision.
it's making a decision based on, I have limited information. I haven't examined all the other religions to say this one is comparable or this
Sure.
one. So that's not a fair question on my part, or to me, because
No,
I don't have all the information of all the other religions to know.
The United States government, as an example, a good illustrative example, they have the responsibility to protect their citizens against falsehood, right? In the form of fake money, counterfeit money. Do they identify every imaginable form of counterfeit money? Or do they focus on the qualities that should be
But we're
identified?
not talking about possibilities of what could come along. We're talking about established religions that we can examine. We're not trying to set the probability of future religions that will
No,
pop
that's
up.
not what I'm saying. For instance, you would take the qualities of a dollar bill. A bill.
Mhm.
You would take the qualifications of true religion from the Bible.
Correct.
And as an example, James 1:27 identifies true religion. And I know a lot of folks are kind of surprised to see this is the scripture that in the Bible really defines true worship or religion.
Mhm.
It simply says, the form of worship or religion that is clean and undefiled from the standpoint of our God and Father is this: to look after orphans and widows in their tribulation and to keep oneself without spot from the world.
That's actually an interesting point, but not probably in the way that you made. I don't want to get into another side issue. But yeah, it's just back to the in or out. I remember Jesus saying something about, when Peter said something about, well, where else can we go?
John 6:68.
Yes, thank you. And it's like, there was no where do we go? It was to whom do we go?
Mhm.
And wouldn't that mean just directly to Jesus as the source?